Hi, welcome to the last part of the lecture on the Carework, which is part of the lecture course, gender economics course of the taught in the Middlesex Technical University, Northern Cyprus campus. And we were looking to the several graphs of ilk Karacan. And we have only two left actually, but we had passed the 15 minutes. We were close to 15 minutes mark, so that's why I'm doing this last part in a separate part. So in this part, you see the works that will be provided to the bottom 40% in terms of income, and the works that are provided to the less. In that case, actually, when you look to the works provided in terms of household income level, we have actually the early childhood education facilities. They will have they will provide much more jobs to the top 60%. Although in terms of number of jobs that is provided it is slightly less than the construction worker sector, and more than the cash transfer case. Let me put this up. But however, still proportionally, at least, you see that the early childhood education facilities benefit in proportional case more the top 60% of the population, not the bottom part of the population. That's one disadvantage, and the disadvantage is in the relative case, basically. Note that all of these numbers are calculated by looking to the different jobs that are provided by the existing childcare facilities, and basically also the costs basically of the childcare facilities, and the same is done for the other two other options. So look to the analysis actually if you're interested. It's a wonderful analysis in my opinion actually, but already I mean without looking to the analysis in detail it takes a lot of time, so I decided to skip that part. So this is the case where you look to the elimination of the poverty, and when you look to that, actually, we have two different types definitions of poverty. One is relative poverty, the poverty differences between the people, between different segments of the society. And in that case, if the both segments are moving together up, the relative poverty doesn't decrease. Is it important? It might be important because the existing life standard might putting a certain level in the society, and if you are below that standard, you might not be able to fully participate in the major social activities, and that might be even if your life standard is higher than, for example, medieval kings, let's say. At least as a medieval king or citizen of the medieval empire, you might be fully part of your society. But as a poor person in the 21st century, if you are outside of your social, let's say, activities, that might be something by itself, make you much less happy and much less healthy compared with the person who is part of his or her society in full sense, but has a lower life standards in material sense. So the relative poverty might be something interesting, something important. Although fixed poverty is also something that is used where you have a poverty line which is defined by the minimum limit of income necessary for a healthy living, which is defined by, of course, by some specialists who decide what is necessary for a healthy living. And here we are looking to construction and the childcare case. In case of construction, you have some elimination of the relative poverty, and also created by the labor demand created by the construction subsidies. In terms of fixed poverty, well, childcare facilities create some fixed poverty, let's say, reduction, but construction work is still creating a higher fixed poverty reduction, and there actually also wages and other factors should be calculated. Here we have not looked at those factors actually when we have looked just for the jobs. In terms of jobs, actually they were more or less equivalent, but in terms of wages, they might not be that way, especially for the jobs that are provided to the low-income people. But the ESP has another effect, which is labor supply effect, and here that effect is completely absent for them for the construction work case. We have already seen most of the people who are in the workforce were the people who were actually university students, university graduates. So basically, they are more likely to be upper income people. So upper income people are already in the labor force, if they are women, of course. I mean, I'm talking on the woman. But the low income women are mostly in the household because they are not able to afford childcare assistance, which might be afforded by the low income people. Institutionalized care is anyway not an option that is used widely. But when there is actually there are childcare facilities where the children could be left, those women will be able to go to labor market and be employed, and that is likely to decrease the poverty, both in relative terms. Well, basically, in relative terms, the poverty is reduced less because also the upper income people are kind of get an advantage because they are able to get more jobs as a result of childcare facilities. But still, of course, the effect created by the ability of the woman to go to the labor market and work, and if they go to the labor market, some of them will find at least jobs, and there we should look to the labor market structure. But the supply, to some extent, not in full sense necessarily, but to some extent, will create demand, and they will find certain jobs. And even if it doesn't create demand immediately, the ability of this new labor force will actually lead to relevant investments, and in time it will create demand. When you look to the fixed poverty, you see an even larger increase. So basically, this ability to work outside of their homes is very much bounded to the ability of the childcare facilities, or both childcare for the woman. And here actually we see that well, market might not be a perfect way to subsidize or create the childcare work for the families if they want certain members to go outside and work. And here actually we have already seen actually the approach of Nancy Fabre was actually providing an opportunity for both of the parents to work, care for their child at home. But if that's not possible, if the jobs are not characterized that way, well, basically, especially for low income people, the ability to join the labor market might be very much dependent on the availability of the childcare facilities. Whether they provide the quality income childcare or not is another question, of course, that should be discussed. But there can be mixed answers actually. In some ways, also those childcare facilities might be healthy for the people, especially for the children, especially if the people who work there are experienced. But of course, to be sure, research should be done also on this, not only in Turkey but also in different countries. Personally, I have started to educate to be in the childcare facilities with the age. I believe as a baby, and I was lucky. Most of the facilities I was in were good facilities, and I'm not. I'm not certainly not sad about the thing that the case that I was given to it. I was cared in those childcare facilities, not cared by family members or relatives, basically. So this is kind of the connection between the care work and the labor market participation and occupation segregation, which is the next chapter we will look upon. And I hope this lecture was interesting for you, especially It was an interesting in different dimension. It has a family dimension in it. It has a also it also has a labor market dimension in it, but it also looks the care work, an important type of work, which should be actually, in my opinion, very well look upon as a economical activity, meeting a very important need, and which also has certain special characteristics. Well, like maybe all of the sectors, but in some ways this is a crucial sector. So separate studies on this sector and considering separate characteristics of this sector might be also important. So if energy sector, energy production or consumption or financial system needs a special attention, care work also needs, in my opinion, special attention. Of economists also, the way it is organized should be also looked upon by the economists. But not maybe necessarily from the perspective of the woman and gender inequality, but also from the perspective of the children. And that's my critique of the gender economics and the feminist economics also. I mean, many of the aspects, many of the topics they look upon are also very interesting when you look beyond the gender relations, actually. Also, especially child-parent relations are also important to look at, and they are and the topics they look upon are very much related to the child-parent relations also. But to some extent, actually, Nelson Folker also did this in his writings in this chapter, which we have seen in this chapter. Anyway, as I said, next time we will look to labor force participation and the discrimination in the labor, not discrimination. I'm sorry, the occupational segregation, the fact that women at work, men work in different jobs in a labor market. And our discussion this week is actually on different childcare options and how these options are impacting the children and other family members. I'm looking forward to your comments, and this is the way I'm ending this lecture. So see you next time, and as always, stay healthy.